Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Housing Committee hearing for February 7th, 2024. It is 10 o'clock a.m. and we're in room 312 here. We have a relatively short agenda, but before we dive in, just some quick housekeeping rules for those of you testifying. We will have a 2-minute time limit for testimony this morning. If you're on Zoom, please keep yourself muted and your video off while waiting to testify and after your testimony is complete. And please avoid using any trademark or copyrighted images on Zoom. Please refrain from profanity or uncivil behavior. Such behavior may be grounds for removal from the hearing without the ability to rejoin. Thanks for members for, I think this is technically our third committee hearing this morning. So thanks for being here this morning. First item on the agenda is HB 2431 relating to the Hawai'i Public Housing Authority. This establishes exempt from oh, you know what? I'm sorry. We are actually going to take some of these items out of order this morning. So we are going to take all of our triple referrals first. We'll take testimony on those items and then go right into decision making on those triples and then take the doubles. This is to give time to get the committee reports done and time for the deadline tonight. So first item then is HB 2327 relating to affordable housing. This authorizes the Hawai'i Public Housing Authority to partner with the property owner of 1021 Smith Street in Honolulu, Oahu to create 60 units of affordable rental housing at that site. It requires the units to be affordable to households having an income that does not exceed an unspecified percentage of the area median income as determined by HUD for at least 60 years. Vice Chair for the testimony.
Bonnie Kahakui, State Procurement Office. Hakeem, HPHA.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We stand in support of this measure.
Thank you. Governor Abercrombie in support.
Thank you. Can I distribute?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you.
Thank
This one. Thank you. I am for both bills. Thank you. The chairman has one. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. Thank you for letting me distribute what's actually being promised here. The whole question of affordable housing, genuinely, truly affordable housing, where we're not just storing people, but giving people, particularly with incomes that have been associated with low incomes, an opportunity to have a home is what's at stake here, particularly for the Chinatown area. Just by way of a quick background, since I left the governorship, I've been in Chinatown developing permanent rental of affordable housing, 60% AMI and below. Permanent rentals, no speculation, nothing for sale, etc. The necessity for providing genuinely affordable rental units for those whose income is 60% of the average median income or less is universally acknowledged. It is equally apparent that increased density of residential units in the urban core, particularly in the downtown Chinatown area of Honolulu, addresses the necessity directly and appropriately. HB 2327 provides a grant to create 60 units of affordable rental housing in fulfillment of the pressing needs I just cited. It follows a successful first step taken in Chinatown with the recent establishment of 38 units at Monacam Marketplace in Chinatown. It is in turn an opportunity to create what I call an urban village community by adaptive reconstitution of available commercial space. Cost of construction of such units is a fraction of the price needed to build from the ground up. It provides the capacity to house people rather than to store them. It is not just shelter, but rather a home, safe, secure, comfortable, with dignity intact. HB 2327 offers the opportunity to set a standard for truly affordable permanent rental units in the urban center where it is most needed by converting otherwise empty commercial space to residential use. It's our opportunity to deliver. We've been talking about rentals for years, permanent rentals. And if we can't deliver in the urban core, it's not going to happen. And Chinatown, with this, and I hope with the approval of the next bill, will kick off a rejuvenation of Chinatown. And I think will provide a test case for transferring or transposing commercial space into residential space.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you. I was waiting for a barrage of questions.
Oh, well, yeah, we'll get through the testimony and then get back to you. Thank you.
Any other individuals wishing to testify on this matter, HB 2327, in person or in Zoom? Chair seeing none.
Members, any questions?
Sure.
Rep. Onishi.
Yeah, for Hawaii housing.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. Keem, the State Procurement Office has asked, why hasn't this concept been put out as an RFP? Because this is a concept, right? For a landowner, right, to develop housing, and the state could help support that by putting up money for the project.
We certainly can do that as well, but also under the emergency proclamation, if it has to do with housing, we are allowed to engage in conversations as well as seeking certain developers if we know they are willing to sell a building. But our position is to do whatever the legislation wants us to do to pursue different venues in any and all different ways.
Wait, sir. So that doesn't answer my question. So why hasn't this concept, I mean, if you have this idea, okay, there's developers out there, there's landowners out there that might be willing to do affordable housing, low-income housing. Let's put out an RFP and see if there's anybody out there that's willing to do it.
Sure, this is not our
This
bill,
is a very
Representative.
specific property and a very specific owner and a very specific developer. And I think it is contrary to our procurement process and to the our responsibility in utilizing public monies in a transparent way.
So, Representative, this is not our bill. We testifying for it, and anything that has to do with providing additional housing, we stand in support, but it's not our bill.
So if this was $20,000, you would support it?
If it's going to bring
$20
additional,
million.
it depends on
instead of
if it's going to provide additional housing and it's fair to the taxpayers, we will support it.
Well, how do we know this is fair?
In our testimony, we did mention that due diligence needs to be done.
Needs to be done.
Yes.
But we're gonna approve the project, provide the funding, and then you're gonna do the due diligence.
The bill calls for that. It's not our bill, again. It's not our bill. We did not submit that bill.
Well, okay, again, in the bill, I don't see where it says there will be due diligence done in regards to whether or not this project,
In our testimony, we did provide that.
it's in your testimony, but it's
Correct.
not in the bill.
Yeah, it's not our bill. We didn't draft it.
I understand, but you just said it's in the bill.
No, I said in our testimony to the bill, we have provided that comment.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Rep. Onishi. Vice Chair, are
I
you?
have some questions, Hakeem.
Sure.
Have you talked to the owner of 1021 Smith Street?
No, I don't know who the owner, I don't know the owner. I have not talked to the owner.
Okay. Okay, I guess I have some questions for Governor, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Governor Abercrombie.
Governor, who
It's a-
who owns 1021 Smith Street,
The Zane family.
and who is that?
Zane family is a prominent Chinatown family that owns that building and has other properties there.
Okay.
And-
why can't they just build affordable units at 60% AMI? Why do they need a partner with HPHA?
That's a very simple answer to that, Representative. It's why nothing's being built. With the interest rates being what they are, the banks are not going to lend on properties that are capable of making this transition and being able to be built. They has to, in order to get the capital, it's the same as Mauna Kea Marketplace. I've cited that in the testimony for a good reason. That had to be a city project, as a matter of fact, and they're trying to combine funds now on the city, the Department of Community Services. The Mauna Kea Marketplace has 2 floors. It's about 50,000 square feet total. The second floor was totally empty. I saw it and I thought, this should be apartments. But the owner of the buildings, whether it's the Zane family at 1021 Smith, or whether it's Geyser Holdings, which had the lease on the Mauna Kea Marketplace, simply could not afford to do it and to do it for rental housing. No, it isn't going to happen.
What are they using the property for then, right now?
It was commercial and it's empty. It's
So
deteriorating.
They can't use their property for any commercial purposes, so now they want to partner with the state to build affordable housing because
They're willing to do
this
that.
property that they
Rather-
can't use anymore.
Yeah, no, well, they can use it.
But they're not using
But they're
it.
not. And this is happening all over urban Honolulu. There are commercial buildings that are deteriorating where the utilization of the commercial space is essentially disappearing. And
Well, are they willing to sell
Opportunity.
the property to the state, or do they just want, they want to continue holding the property, but they want the state to incur the cost?
well, this is what the Affordable Housing Fund from the city, and hopefully what will be happening with the state is at point. The advantage to the city or the counties or the state is that commercial property or other rental property that's deteriorating and can't be converted because the owners can't get any bank support for it, are willing to, for the investment, the capital investment, create permanent rental apartments for 60% AMI or less, permanently, 60 years is the standard HUD and to the present time city standard for permanent rental housing for low income. Developers will not do it. They might come and ask you for, or ask the city or ask the state to support 500 units at market rates, and then they'll throw in 20 units or 25 units supposedly for rentals. And even there, they ask to be able to sell them for a profit after 15 years or 30 years. The idea here is that every single city in the country, every single urban area in the country except for Hawaii and except for the city and county of Honolulu is utilizing empty commercial space to transfer and transpose into residential, low-income, permanent rental
That's
housing.
not the problem I have. The problem I have is that you want to partner with a business owner who otherwise cannot use this property in whatever commercial reasonably method that they wanted to use this property for, and they instead want the state to develop this property into affordable housing, and then in 60
No.
years, they can take the state's investment and do whatever they want with the property.
Well, you
That's
could-
the issue I have here.
Okay, well, you could alter that if that was the desire of the state. To the present time, the existing model is that it's for 60 years, and that the investment by either the counties or the state would be that you get otherwise unavailable rental housing that otherwise is not going to exist. it's not that the commercial space couldn't possibly be utilized at some point in the future. Maybe if the interest rates come down in the next 2 years, maybe they might think about doing something. In the meantime, we don't have any permanent rental, low-income housing. The commercial space remains empty, and the housing crisis gets worse.
So would the landowner have a problem if we amend this bill to have the state condemn this land and convert it to a public purpose for public housing?
Well, I suppose if, that would be the equivalent, I doubt it, that would be the equivalent of selling I can't speak for them, but the whole reason that they were willing to do the rental housing in the first place was that otherwise they were just going to let the building sit until possibly at some point in the distant future, some commercial use might be made of it. They were willing, if the capital was provided, to forego any commercial possibilities.
Okay, okay, thank you, Governor.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Governor.
thank you.
Sure.
I should say, just by the way, about the origin of the bill, I'm sorry, I meant to answer that. John Mizuno in his new capacity helped put the bill together and it's drafted accordingly. And obviously, I mean, from my point of view, with half a century of legislation behind me, I realize that there's going to be some discussion as to whether, if the concept is good, that there might be some modifications to it. The condemnation, from my point of view, aside from this bill, if the state or the city wants to start condemning property and building affordable rental housing, I'm all for it.
Thank you, Governor. Rep.
Chair,
Bernucci.
can I get a follow-up for Hawaii Housing?
Yeah.
Akeem, so having seen this bill and putting together testimony in support of it, what other due diligence has your organization done on this project?
Well, we're not allowed to engage yet and do diligence until we are given the permission to do that.
Well, you're supporting it.
We're supporting the fact to add additional affordable housing. We will always support that. So if the legislature, our testimony is basically if the legislature see fit and they'd like to task the housing authority to look at this building for the purpose of providing specific housing, whatever it's in the bill, that we are always here to do the intent of the legislature.
Okay. So with the address of this property, you didn't even think about, well, let's see what it's valued at. No?
No, we did not do any due diligence
Okay,
yet because
well,
we don't know
I
where
did.
this is going.
And I looked up the city and county of Honolulu assessment. The entire property is valued at $3 million.
Okay.
So we're gonna spend $6 million on a property that's worth $3 million. Again, I think one of the questions that came up was, why aren't we considering buying it?
Whatever
know-
the legislature would like to do, we're supporting it. I mean, if you want us to buy
I
it.
mean,
and
we
do-
have your department there to give us guidance, not to just
For this
follow-
specific property, we're happy to do that if you'd like
I'm
us to.
sorry?
The bill did not call for that. We supporting the idea of getting additional housing. If the legislature would like to amend that we look at that bill, that building for purchasing, we'll be happy to go and do due diligence and report to the legislature.
So if we were to say, hey, you know what, instead of us doing this bill, we'll just direct you to go explore this and come up with an RFP in order to do this type of development, that's what you would end up doing.
Absolutely, 100%.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
And then Hakeem, I guess my last set of questions is, don't you guys have enough on your plate right now with like all of your projects to take on another project just in its infancy? Or what's your capacity to get the the housing units you have on the plate, your plate already done?
We certainly have a lot on our plate. We saw this, if there is an existing building, the trend, it seems to be taking an existing building that's been built and convert it. If that is the case, what we'll do is engage into a private-public partnership to do the work, just to increase the amount. But you are absolutely right. We have a tremendous amount of work.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, further questions? I have one question, Hakeem. Sure. Have you folks done anything like this before, public-private partnership, where the owner retains ownership in coordination with you folks?
No, we have not.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any further questions? All right, seeing none, the next item on the agenda, again, taking this out of order, is HB 2328 relating to affordable housing. Appropriates money to the Hawaii Public Housing Authority to acquire and renovate parcels and buildings located between Bethel Street, Pauahi Street, Fort Street, and Chaplain Lane for affordable housing purposes. Requires the units be affordable to households having an income that does not exceed an unspecified percentage of the area median income as determined by HUD. Vice Chair for the testimony.
Hakeem, HBHA, in support.
Thank you. We stand in support and re-emphasizing what's in our testimony, that due diligence should be conducted to ensure that these properties can be converted into affordable housing. Appraisals, closing costs, consultant services, legal services, and other costs that will be incurred should all be investigated and done. It's in our testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bonnie, Kahakui State Procurement Office. No, Governor Abercrombie, individual in support.
I may not have enough for everybody.
I actually have one, I believe. I've seen.
I may have another one. Thank you very much. Well, as we have already determined, the Hawaii Public Housing Authority has announced and is implementing a very ambitious and much-needed program to acquire and/or renovate properties for the purpose of addressing the crisis over the lack of affordable permanent rental units statewide, with particular emphasis on the urban core in Honolulu. The Bethel Street block, which is what is outlined in the material that I've provided for you, some of you may not be familiar with it. Those of us who have lived here a long, long time remember very well when the Blaisdell Hotel was the center of particularly weekend activity. I remember seeing the Beamer Brothers get started with their musical family there. It's the Blaisdell Hotel, the Ohia commercial building, which is now virtually empty, and the Whitlock building, which has business on the first floor and the second floor empty. It constitutes literally a square block on the Fort Street Mall. If you think about Walmart down on the King Street end of it, if you come up the Fort Street Mall towards Beretania, then you see the where this square block is. The Bethel Street block described in HB 2328 offers an exceptional opportunity to create literally dozens of such units at a fraction of the cost of a standard development. The existing buildings will be converted from existing commercial space to residential use. The result will be a rejuvenated community which will revitalize the Fort Street Mall area and spark a rebirth of urban life in the Chinatown area. Fee simple purchase of this size and magnitude, which creates the possibility for contiguous, affordable rental units, is unprecedented in urban Honolulu and unlikely to be duplicated. The site begs for adaptive use. It will be a crown jewel in the inventory of truly affordable rental housing so desperately needed today in Hawaii. I think it will, if the opportunity, if it passes. I work in Chinatown. I'm in the area, the downtown area all the time. I can't think of, nor is it possible to find, I think, an opportunity like this.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Governor. Any other individuals in person or on Zoom wishing to testify on this matter, HB 2328? Chair seeing none. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Mazzino.
Good morning, Vice Chair, Chair, committee members. Yeah, in support of House Bill 2328, you heard what the governor said. This is unprecedented to have the opportunity to get the locations of buildings between Bethel Street, Hawai'i Street, Fort Street, Chaplain Lane. This is something that we need, affordable rental units, and I think this bill is a step in the right direction. So for those reasons, stand in complete and strong support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals wishing to testify on this bill, HB 2328? Chair seeing none.
Members, any questions?
I have some questions.
Vice Chair, are you?
I guess the governor or Mr. Mazzino. I guess my same question here is, who owns these parcels?
It's owned by a family that has real estate and has had real estate interests in Hawaii. Presently, they own a hotel in Waikiki, and they may have other interests. It's a Fullard-Leo family. Some of you may be
Sorry,
from
what was that one more time?
the Fullard. It's in the. I think it's in the material there. The Fullard-Leo family, Fullard-Leo. It's been in the family for decades. And again, almost the same situation I described earlier. It was commercial property, including the hotel, and operated as such for many years. But over time, everything has deteriorated. They were waiting, so far as I'm able to determine, for an opportunity perhaps to rejuvenate the commercial side of things, and they've decided, with the economy the way it is, with interest rates the way they are, and the decline of the opportunity for commercial space, that they were willing to sell. They were never willing to do it before, and they consolidated the properties they own there into this square block. And
Okay. Do you have an appraisal of this what the property value is worth?
the real estate company may have it.
That's Royal Muse Development, or no?
The Royal Muse Development brought it to my attention that it might be possible for it to be for sale, so I inquired about it.
Okay.
My sole task, ever since as I say, I left the governorship, was to try to promote wherever I could, particularly from the private area, affordable rental housing, because it is not being built. The legislature has been generous in providing all kinds of funding, and there's the state finance and the housing development in the city and all the rest of it, and the talk goes on, and you find a few developers who are willing to deal with the incredible expense associated with getting lawyers and tax credits and putting all kinds of things together. The small commercial operators and owners of property are simply don't have that kind of capacity, and they don't. And so this property's been sitting there. So I thought, as I did with Mauna Kea Marketplace and this property at Smith Street, and this is a chance to make a difference and get started and prove it can be done.
Well, I guess now that we are talking about housing, since there are limited resources, and in your new position as regent on the board of regent, why don't we take this money and put it in Hale Noelani or any of the other housing units that the state already owns that we could easily rehabilitate rather than spending new money on these properties?
Hale Noelani is for students.
I mean, it's housing units, though.
Yes, it is. I suppose if it's the desire, I
What
would
is
be
the-
delighted. I would be delighted.
I mean, there's limited
speaking-
resources, though, as you know.
I understand. I understand that very, very well. There's limited resources, but I also note that the state is now involved in expending enormous amounts of money on an entertainment district, for example, which housing is supposed to follow from. It all seems that housing is going to follow at some point, particularly affordable housing. I guarantee you, if you put the money in at Noelani, and I brought this to the attention, by the way, of the legislature. Lauren Akataki, the new regent, and myself brought the housing issue at the university to the attention of the legislature because the university has miserably failed to do it for the past 7 years. Now, what I can tell you is the basic cost for rental in those apartments is thousands of dollars a month. Thousands of dollars a month. No affordable rental housing for 60% AMI is going to be at the University of Hawaii in renovated Noelani dorms or any of the other dorms. I'm all for it. I think we should have a bond issue for it. And when the Higher Ed Committee comes, as regents, we're going to be testifying about it. But a decision has to be made by the legislature of whether we're going to continue to talk about genuinely affordable rental housing, conversion of unused commercial space for housing or not. And if you have to make a decision, about where to put money, putting money for a genuinely affordable permanent rental housing for low-income people is where it should go, in my estimation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, further questions? Rep. Onishi.
Yes, no, I'm sorry. For John?
Representative Onishi, hi.
Hi, thanks, John, for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. Again, I have a similar question in regards to the value of these properties. So have you done any assessment as to the value?
I haven't.
How do you know it's that this is something that the state should do?
I think it's an option in affordable rental units for the people of Hawaii. So like Vice Chair mentioned, Hale Noelani on UH, we can turn that into affordable rental units. And when I say that, I mean deeply affordable rental units. Lower the AMI to maybe even 30%.
Well, okay, that's a different discussion.
This is a
I'm
vehicle.
concerned about this procurement, right? You're asking
sir.
for $30 million to procure these properties. In this proposal, I see that the supposed value is $21 million. 21 and a half. So what's happening to the other 8.5 million?
I can't answer that, Representative, but I will say this.
But you support it.
I support it if it's less than the assessed value. And so even if they come in with the price at 30 million, if we can't get it for significantly less, it shouldn't pass.
How would we know though?
Do an independent assessment, it may be even less. Maybe it's worth only 18 million. But the bottom line is if the state can get property for, even if it's assessed at 18 million, maybe even less, maybe 15 million, and it can provide hundreds of rental units, we have to do something. People are moving out of our state. People are going homeless.
So, being a former legislator, you know and probably understand that the state or any government entity in the state can only purchase property at a reasonable market value. We can't be, we're not allowed to pay what the owner wants us to pay.
Yes, sir.
So supporting this bill, again, without knowing what the actual value or even to do an assessment, it seems like really premature, similar to the other bill.
Actually, if we torpedo this bill, it's premature. If you just pass it with a blank amount and let it go to the Senate, and we do an assessed value, and the fair market price actually is 18 million or less, then we offer 15 million or a lot
But
less.
who's going to do the assessment? The previous bill, I already asked Hawaii Housing if they did any due diligence on the previous project in terms of its value, right? I just went on the Honolulu Property Tax website and found out that that particular building's assessed value is at 3 million, and they're asking for 6. I mean,
So
that's
you've,
just my concern, is that these are very specific projects with very specific values. And, you know, I mean, I think it's part of my responsibility to
Right.
ensure that these,
so the other bill that you mentioned, Representative Onishi, if its assessed value is at 3 million, we wouldn't pay anything more than 3 million to renovate. And you've got a 60-year lease, and if we can call the AMI at, let's say it's 60, what if the legislature and the governor agree that it should be 30% AMI? That is as low as it gets. That's like rent, $500, $400 a month, deeply affordable. For 60 years, it'll work.
okay,
I'm just saying, please give us an opportunity, that's all.
thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Members, further questions? All right, seeing none, the last item on the agenda for our triples is HB 1339. Related to housing, this requires for fixed-term tenancies a landlord to notify a tenant of any intent to raise the rent for any subsequent rental agreement or any intent to terminate a rental agreement 90 days before the expiration of the original rental agreement, but 120 days for original rental agreements with a term greater than 2 years. Vice Chair for the testimony.
Sergio, Hawaii Worker Center, in support, in person.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sergio Alquabilia. I'm the Executive Director of the Hawaii Worker Center. The Hawaii Worker Center is a nonprofit organization that envisions empowering our workers to advocate for their own social, political, and economic well-being. We stand in support of this bill because what it does, of course, obviously, is for the 40% of our renters in the state is it gives them more time to better plan finding another place. If you've ever been a renter and you know that you need to find another place, you've got to take care of first month's rent, you've got to take care of security deposit, and you've got to go through this whole gamut of trying to find housing in competition with other folks, right? So it does take time. And then second, one of the things that we're seeing, prior to this role, I worked for a nonprofit legal service provider. And one of the big things that we saw in 2014 with Hurricane Iselle, of course, was, in the aftermath of the storm, one of the first things that we saw were people getting displaced because the landlords were seeking to re-rent the units at a higher rent to those that were displaced because of insurance. And fast forward to 2023, and of course what we're seeing on Maui with the wildfires, despite the emergency proclamation, is the same thing. Landlords are, of course, trying to let these leases lapse within the 45-day period to re-rent at a higher rate despite the emergency proclamation. So what this bill does is it gives that extra layer of protection for our working families, and it gives that extra layer of protection in the future for any other disaster. Thank you again, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of this committee for letting me testify.
Thank you. Lindsay, you were actually first on my list, but I saw you running in, so Hawaii Realtors in opposition. Thank you, Lindsay. There's a bunch of other individuals that submitted testimony. Do any of those individuals want to testify on this matter, HB 1339? Any other individuals on Zoom or in person want to testify on this matter? Chair seeing none.
Members, any questions? Representative Onishi.
Sorry. Yes, for Lindsay, for Realtors. So this would change the owner's notice to the renter,
Yes.
correct? Do we have in statute a requirement for the renter to provide notice to the owner about leaving?
That's a good question. I am not sure. I can double check that and get back to you.
Okay. If I can have a follow-up for Hawai'i Worker Center, please.
Thank you, Representative Onishi. If I could just answer your earlier question. So for month-to-month, there is a requirement that tenants provide 28-day written notice to their landlord, and currently landlords have a 45-day written notice.
So it's 20 days for the renter to notify the owner that they're leaving?
At 28 days, sir,
28 days?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And 45 days
for the
for the
landlord.
owner to notify the renter?
Yes, Representative.
Okay. Would you guys be opposed to increasing the notice for the renter to notify the owner?
For the renter to be able to, giving more time
To the
for
owner, to say, hey, you know what, I found a new place, or I'm moving, or whatever, I intend to vacate your property.
Representative, I believe that's reasonable.
That we increase it?
To a reasonable amount, of course. Whatever that time frame is,
Well, we're basically doubling the notice, right, to the renter?
yeah.
If we doubled the notice to the owner, would that be reasonable?
I believe so. Representative, I can't speak for all renters, but I would say, as a renter myself, it would be reasonable to give notice. But I would like to say that during that time, during that 45 days or 28 days, whenever renter or landlord has given notice, you can move out at any time during that time.
You're just committed for the rent, right?
At a prorated basis if you do move out earlier, or if you only stay for a certain amount, but you don't need the whole 45 days if you find another place.
Right, right. But okay, so this would extend it to 90 then?
It basically doubles the time for a month to month. It's right now for a month to month it's 45 days written notice, and for a fixed term lease, which if you sign your lease beginning of the year, you know at the end of the year it's going to expire. At the end of the year it's going to expire. The problem right now is it's only a recommendation that landlords and tenants speak to each other, saying, "Are you going to renew this lease or not?" It does leave tenants in a kind of a precarious situation, because you may not know, a few weeks out that your lease is probably not going to be renewed.
Well, it also leaves the owner in a precarious position when you don't know if the renter's going to leave or not.
Yeah, so as long as, there's some sort of communication between the two is what we would recommend. But right now in statute, it's only in the landlord-tenant code, it only recommends it, but this would actually put it in statute.
Okay. Earlier you mentioned that during the emergency proclamation, that owners were giving the 45-day notice and then not doing anything in order to have the renter leave, and then increasing the rent?
Yes, we also have a Maui tenants hotline that we've been running for the past year and a half. And those are a lot of the stories that we're hearing, that we're seeing on the ground. Even though there is the emergency proclamation that prohibits you from increasing the rent, what it was before the fires, that's the reality of what's happening. I know the Attorney General has asked that, we report these violations, but that's what we're reporting, and that's what we're seeing.
So it is against the emergency proclamation.
Yes, Representative.
And what's the penalty to the owner?
Right now, I'm sorry, I know we're just reporting them directly to the AG for the AG to do the investigation. I don't have the specific what the fine amount is on top of mind.
Okay, so owners have taken action against renters for not vacating after the 45-day?
So they're not, if they take, if they take the tenant to court, right? There's supposed to be no evictions anyway,
Right.
because of the emergency proclamation. But, for a lot of the tenants, sometimes they're just, they're not especially skilled to go to court or, advocate for their own rights, or so they just see that 45-day notice to vacate, and they're going to vacate.
But they are complaining to you.
Yes, Representative. I mean, because as you know, the housing market in Maui is so tight. I mean, ideally, if you can stay in your place, you stay there, rather than having to find another place and compete with more residents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
Vice Chair, are you?
I have some questions on the 1 year versus 2 year leases on the notice. What's the effective difference between having a 1 year lease versus a 2 year lease and the landlord needing to give the renter more time? Like as soon as you start your lease, why does it matter that you're 3 months in, 6 months in, 12 months in, that just because you had a 2 year lease, now I got to give you even more time versus the 1 year lease?
Vice Chair, for that question, I mostly I've only dealt with 1 year leases. That's usually kind of the standard. It's rare that I see a multi-year lease. I really don't have an answer for that question.
Okay. And then as far as the month to month, the 90-day notice, if the tenant moves out after the first day of getting the notice, it's pretty oppressive on the landlord that they get a prorated amount for the end of the term, right? Or no?
Let me just this is from the landlord-tenant handbook. It just says the tenant may vacate the unit at any time within the last 45-day period and is responsible for payment of prorated rent for the period that the premises are occupied and for notifying the landlord of the day of vacating. You know, for landlords, and I know there's a representative here from the realtor side, but it's part of it is the cost of doing business. I mean, it's part of the risk, right? When you're renting, to tenants, and as a landlord, you should be able to mitigate some of those risks.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive. We're calling it month-to-month rentals, but then we got to give them 3 months notice. And then they can leave at any time, and then they're responsible for being able to fill it immediately if the tenant so inclines to move out immediately. I understand where you're coming from. It just seems kind of oppressive in that scenario.
That it gives them an extra three months, basically.
The unit might be sitting vacant for 2.5 months or so, if they didn't have someone lined up and ready to go.
To move out.
Yeah. No, on the opposite end, on the filling end.
I understand.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Representative.
I have,
Sure. Before,
yeah, Representative Ishii.
I'm really sorry, I forgot to ask for a ruling on a conflict of interest. My wife's family have rental property, so I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. I think you need to take that up for further consideration with the speaker when the time is appropriate, but from my perspective, no conflict. And I should also rule that I have a rental unit, personally. I have a quick question. So currently, under the law, month-to-month rentals require the 45-day notice, but 1 year rentals don't require any notice?
Yes, basically because it's a 1 year lease agreement, right? So the notice is supposed to be at the end of that 1 year.
Okay.
So and it's just recommended that they speak to each other whether or not they're going to stay.
Okay, thank you. Members, further questions? All right.
Thank you, Chair.
That said, we're going to recess very briefly for decision-making. For February 7th, for decision-making. First up, we have HB 2327 relating to affordable housing. This is authorizing HPHA to partner with the property owner at 1021 Smith Street. We are going to defer this measure for today, and the rationale being, one, I feel uncomfortable with the partnership agreement. I think there are many existing mechanisms for a property owner to develop housing through, in possible coordination with the state through rental housing revolving fund, dwelling unit revolving fund, LIHTC, private activity bonds, et cetera. And I don't necessarily feel comfortable lobbying HPHA with this mandate to partner with an existing property owner. So, that said, I fully support the revitalization of Chinatown. I think the state should be a partner in that revitalization and doing what we can, but we should do so through those existing other mechanisms. So we'll be deferring 2327 for HB 2328 relating to affordable housing, which appropriates money to HPHA to acquire and renovate parcels. I personally support this in that acquisition is, I think, within HPHA's mandate, and that I recommend affecting the date, adopting the recommendations of the State Procurement Office in their testimony, and blanking out the appropriation. Members, questions or comments? All right. Yeah.
I have some comments. Just I feel like we need a little bit more work on this parcel, on the value and what, how we intend to do it, a little bit more due diligence. So hopefully the people in support of this can provide that to the Judiciary, the Finance Committee. And I guess my last comment is that the resolution, like House resolutions, are still available for us to do studies and then come back next year with a little bit more information, because we're all not developers here, and I don't think that's our prerogative as legislators to, be the ones procuring properties. So that's just my comment on this measure. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and I think well said, Vice Chair. And I just, I think what Johnny Mizuno said about keeping the door open for this, right? I think we are passing it out of here today to keep the door open and to keep that dialogue going and to see if the state could get a good price on this. So that said, members, any final questions, comments? All right, Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay, members, voting on HB 2328, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Keela.
Aye.
Representative Kitagawa.
Aye.
Representative Miyake.
Aye.
Representative Onishi.
Reservations.
Representative Todd.
Aye.
Representative Matsumoto.
Aye.
Chair, your measure is adopted. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. The last triple that we have for today is HB 1339, relating to lease agreements. My recommendation for this will be to affect the date, to modify on the rental agreement section for greater than 90 days, to change the notice requirement for both rent increases and terminations to 60 days from the 90 that's in the bill right now, and then to delete the sections relating to leases over 2 years. So any lease then over 90 days would have that same 60-day requirement. And then if the tenancy is less than month-to-month, to change the notification for termination to 15 days, which actually then matches the 15-day notice up for termination or rent increases for less than month-to-month. And then to reinstate existing notice requirements to all other sections in the bill. And then tech amendments for clarity as needed. My personal reasons for doing that is I do think 90 days is too long. 3 months is a long time to notify somebody of a potential rent increase. A lot can happen within that 90-day period, and I think it is important that there be some decent notice period, but 90 is simply too long. Members, questions or comments? All right, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, voting on HB 1339, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the presence of all members or any members who vote no or with reservations. Chair, seeing none, your measure is adopted.
Great, thank you. All right, we will be going back to the beginning of the agenda for testimony on our other bills in order. So first up, we have HB 2431 relating to the Hawai'i Public Housing Authority. This establishes exempt from Chapter 76 the position of a housing policy and program coordinator in the HPHA, whose salary shall be set by the executive director of HPA. Vice Chair for the testimony.
Okay, Hakeem HHA in support.
Vice Chair, members of the committee, we stand
Thank you. Randy Pereira, HGEA, in opposition. I don't see him. Any other individuals on Zoom or in person wishing to testify on this matter? 2431. Chair, seeing none.
Members, questions? Representative Onishi.
Yeah, Chair, first, I want to rule in on a potential conflict of interest. I was formerly the president for HGA, and I noticed HGA provided testimony in regards to the issue of whether or not these positions should be exempt.
Yeah, I personally see no conflict, but you can restate that on the floor.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for the Hawaii Housing.
Aloha, Representative.
I thank you for being here again.
Thank you.
Basically, I have a follow-up question to the HGA's testimony in regards to exempting all these positions. What's the justification? I don't understand what it would be.
Thank you. These positions are already exempt. We're just asking for an additional position. The other one, we just clarify in the titles.
The Chief Compliance Officer,
It's already
Housing
existing.
Contract and Procurement Officer.
It's already existing and it's exempt. Those positions, just for clarification, we're only seeking one additional position for the
That's the
developer.
Housing Policy and Program Coordinator.
That is correct.
And they're not currently exempt.
Correct. That will be a new position we're requesting.
And I guess,
This confuses me because all of these positions are underlined, which means they're added. Oh,
I don't know.
Those, it just has a change into the clarification, just on the title. So what the bill does, there are certain existing positions, the ones that I just mentioned, they're already existing, they already have bodies, and they're already exempt. This clarifies that they report to the executive director as they do now. In addition to that, there is one position that we're requesting due to the additional funding that's coming, due to the MTW designation that HUD has given us, and that's the position that Representative Ayu has just mentioned.
Further questions, Rep. Onishi?
yeah, well, this still confuses me because, so you're saying the reason these other positions are underlined is because they're being changed from being, their salaries set by the board to being set by the executive director?
Those positions, the salary was not set by the board. They were not in the statute.
These
So we
other
added-
positions are not
Correct.
in the statute.
So exactly.
So you're adding
that is correct.
to the
But
statute.
that's correct. And there are existing bodies that already existed for decades.
How did they get established?
Through the legislature giving us the position.
Through appropriation.
Yes,
So you are changing it. You're adding these people to be the salary set by the executive director,
that is correct, as it is right now.
as it is right now.
Correct. The only
But as it is
salaries,
right now, it's established by the board.
only two positions that are established by the board. Let me rephrase, I'm sorry. With regards to the last question that you said, by the board, that is required. HUD has established two things. One, the board of directors have to only concentrate on policies. The executive director, by mandate of HUD and annual contract that we have, they has to do day-to-day operations, and hence the separation here that it is under the executive director.
Okay, so why do these positions have to be exempt?
They already exempt, Representative.
Okay. So who sets these positions right now?
Whatever the market is,
No, the pay.
the pay.
You
We do a
decide.
study, yeah, we do a study. After the study, we send it to the Department of Human, DHS, and then they verify that the study is accurate, the salary is appropriate, and then it gets set.
Okay.
Further questions, members?
Yeah, I guess,
Vice Chair, you.
Hakeem, why does the housing policy and program coordinator need to be exempt?
Because it's new, and it is a position that's very specialized, that it's very difficult to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Members, further questions? All right. Representative Onishi,
Follow-up?
you're not off the hook yet.
So the job descriptions for these positions, were they shared with the HGA?
Once it's given, there is a process. We will establish the position, we'll establish the job descriptions, and then it goes through the process, through the departments, to make sure everything it's packed properly. And it will be shared.
And there is consultation requirement
We will do consultation, correct?
with HGA?
Yeah, correct. In this case, will be yes,
Okay,
HGA.
okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Members, further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is HB 2432, relating to the Hawaii Public Housing Authority, makes housekeeping amendments to various sections to incorporate the definition of housing project in section 356D-11. Vice Chair for the testimony.
Hakeem, one more time for HPHA in support.
Yes, thank you very much. We stand on testimony.
Thank you so much. Anyone else wishing to testify on this matter, HB 2432? Chair, seeing none.
Members, questions? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda, no more. All right. We are going to recess very briefly for decision making. The Housing Committee hearing for February 7th for decision making. First up, we have HB 2431. My recommendation is to defect the date and adopt tech amendments. Members, questions or comments?
Chair.
Representative
So
Onishi.
I do have some comments. Again, I'm very concerned about having exempt positions in government. I can see where exempt positions have a role to play when they are like really hard to fill or very, very specialized work or work that's, new or innovative. Many of these positions have similar positions in other state government agencies. And because the requirement is only consultation to the union, no matter what the union says, the department or agency can just ignore it and just move ahead. So with that being said, I believe these employees should be given the right to be civil service employees. And so I'll be voting with reservations for now. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Rep. Onishi.
Chair, same comment. Thank you, Rep. Onishi, for explaining this issue for us.
And I think that said, we should include in the committee report restating your concerns for finance to consider. But members, any further questions or comments?
Comment.
Rep.
Thank you,
Gila.
Chair. I would echo probably the same reservations in regards to what's been raised by Representative Onishi and Representative Ayu. And I would maybe even further explore that if they're looking for a civil service exemption, to maybe explore a position in the governor's office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further questions, comments, concerns? All right, Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay, members voting on HB 2431. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the reservations of Vice Chair Representative Kila and Representative Onishi. Are there any of the members choosing to vote with reservations? Voting no. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next item is HB 2432 relating to the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. My recommendation is to move this out with a defective date and tech amendments for clarity and consistency. Members, questions or concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on HB 2432, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the presence of all members. Are there any members choosing to vote no or with reservations? Chair, seeing none, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. And then the last item on the agenda is HB 2292 relating to affordable housing development. This appropriates funds to HHFDC for the establishment and hiring of an unspecified number of project management 3 positions to aid in the development of affordable housing options in the state. We deferred this on the last agenda to get more information, and HHFDC is looking at just 1 position here. And so my recommendation is to defect the date and amend the bill to include the language that it's just for a single position and to move on in HD1. Members, questions or comments? Vice Chair for the vote.
Members voting on HB 2292, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the presence of all members. Are there any members choosing to vote no or with reservations? Chair, seeing none, your recommendation is adopted.
All right. Thank you, members. That's the end of our agenda here. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. This hearing is now adjourned.